Split Fiction is the latest title from Joseph Faris and his team of talented developers at Hazelight Studio. A team which has developed a pedigree for co-op action games and know how to create unique experiences, like those seen in A Way Out and It Takes Two, which if you haven't played yet, I'd very much recommend. A Way Out was the first co-op game I played from Hazelight Studios, which was when I was first introduced to their incredibly unique co-op mechanics. This game is very muted in comparison to what they've made since, but I've played this recently and it still holds up very well. Hazelight then built onto this success by releasing It Takes Two, which took their co-op dependent formula and pushed it into overdrive. It Takes Two took the game market by storm on release, selling 23 million units, which is double what A Way Out sold. This metric is made even more impressive when you consider the fact that It Takes Two introduced the Friend Pass. This is a system where as long as one player owns the game, someone else who does not own it can also play it with them, without having their own copy. With It Takes Two, Hazelight brought in a ton of variety in gameplay and mechanics crossing multiple genres, along with a story that allowed a lot more creative freedom. With the variety of amazing co-op gameplay and the priority on fun, as well as releasing during the pandemic window where people were looking for a nice way to interact with one another, It Takes Two was a smash hit and went on to win the 2021 Game of the Year award at the Game Awards. Split Fiction is now in a rough position. It has to follow on from its predecessor with a lot of expectations already set from the prior game, something It Takes Two didn't have to do on the same degree at launch. It also doesn't have that benefit of being able to surprise people with the variation of gameplay and wacky events that It Takes Two's managed to achieve. But did it manage to meet these expectations? Yeah, it mostly did. And it still very much contains that gameplay blueprint that a lot of people that played It Takes Two would be hoping for. Really bringing in that energy and creativity that Hazelight Studios have been known for. This doesn't mean it's perfect though. It does have some shortcomings. For me, it's mostly concerning the characters and the overall story, but these are very minor gripes in the grand scheme of things. I mean, in the end of the day, I'm just nitpicking in what is overall an amazing co-op experience. It also brings a different tone than It Takes Two, having darker undertones and overarching stories with bigger stakes. It still has a lot of very silly moments, which are both fun and goofy when it wants to be, but it leans into a more, let's say, serious storyline. I'm going to avoid showing any spoilers in the gameplay footage from the story, but I'm also going to not show a lot of gameplay later on, and instead stick to the first hour or so of the game, as there's a lot of surprise gameplay moments throughout the story that I want you to experience for the first time yourselves, as they're really something special. For those who have not played a Hazelight title before, I used the phrase co-op dependent earlier, and that's because to play this game, you will need a partner. The game is built around requiring two players to work. Split screen is a must, and there's no AI teammates, and no matchmaking. Couch co-op or online co-op only. Don't let this put you off though, as it's quite an experience. If you don't have a friend to play this with, there are going to be plenty of people looking for a duo. Be sure to check out the Split Fiction Reddit and the official Split Fiction Discord, as they have set up channels specifically for this. This game also offers the Friend Pass, meaning that only one player needs to own the game. So if you're having a hard time convincing a friend, then it might make it easier and they do not need to buy the game themselves. It also supports crossplay, which I didn't personally get to test, but hats off to Hazelight and EA, as both the Friend Pass and crossplay are very player-forward features that they didn't have to include, but I'm glad to see them in there. If you put yourself out there, I'm sure you can find a duo, and I'm sure there'll be some great friendships made from people who met each other through this title. Hey, I mean, even if you don't own or can't afford the game, you might find someone who's looking for a second and giving you a way to play it without having to make the purchase. With all that cleared up though, let's talk about Split Fiction. The game follows two amateur writers, Mio and Zoe. They're looking to get their first publishing deal. They're lured into a company named Radar Publishing with the prospect of finally making a breakthrough in their career. Of course, this is not as good as the deal as it sounds, and instead they end up placed inside of a machine, which drains all the stories and ideas from the writers, storing all the data in the company's servers. This story concept is very on the nose, and I'm sure big corporations siphoning creativity from the creatives is something many people in the industry are concerned with currently. The machine the writers get placed in simulates these stories to the writers as it siphons them out, letting the writers experience their imaginary worlds as if they're real. After a slight altercation, Mio ends up in the same pod as Zoe, causing them to share a world and causing the machine to start experiencing glitches. These glitches allow Mio and Zoe to transmit between each other's stories, which is where this game really gets creative. Mio is a sci-fi writer, while Zoe is a high fantasy writer, leading the players to frequently hop back and forth between the two genres, going from a Dune-like world to a magical animal kingdom and then back into a cyberpunk city landscape. Mio and Zoe are also strangers to each other. Going for each other's stories lead to both the characters and the players to learn about these writers. Diving into each other's minds also unearths some other deeper, darker realizations, not only about each other but also themselves. I will leave all of this for you to discover though. Split Fiction opens fast and grabbed me immediately, throwing you straight into the action and flexing that shifting genre idea to let you know what you're in for. The scenario they have written here really lets them go wild creatively. From absurd gameplay moments that you didn't see coming, leaving you with a smile on your face that you can't control, to the amazing environmental world designs and set pieces that leave a screenshot imprinted in your mind, wowing you with how good some of the worlds look. They've even brought memorable and amazing boss battles to the game that near rival that of MMO bosses, requiring coordination between you and your duo, dodging various mechanics and being put into bullet hell scenarios. Some boss fights are so incredibly creative that I spent the whole boss fight trying to take in what was going on. The majority of the game is spent in worlds that your characters create. While traversing these worlds, you'll be greeted with a plethora of co-op mechanics, making you work together to progress through these levels, ranging from flying cars around a city while the other player keeps cops off your back, to a level where a player literally becomes the world and moves the map, helping you traverse around it. While the large majority of these are not conventionally difficult to keep the game more accessible, the game stays fun to interact with, making it great for all levels of gamers. I will say that it's more difficult than It Takes Two, which means for the non-initiated gamers out there, it might take a while to get through certain parts, but it's definitely doable. You know, if someone has trouble aiming and moving at the same time, it may take a little while for them to adjust, but they'll get there. I got the feeling while playing that the game is a bit of a love letter to all the games that came before it. It's hard to describe what type of game this is, as it's a little bit of everything. There were plenty of times where I was thinking, hey, this is inspired by that game. Every time it happened, bringing a little bit of nostalgia with it. I went from Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Mario, Metroid, all the way to Panzer Dragoon. And I'm sure this is intentional. What even further pushes this idea is the fact that they've managed to fill these levels with Easter eggs referencing many games, and putting intentional dialogue quips which are either extra references or straight up ripped from other media. Once the intro scenario is finished, and it lays the foundation for the story, the game starts to take shape. The basic loop of the game is you will spend one mission in Mio's sci-fi stories, play through it until that story ends, then move on to the fantasy story written by Zoe. Both the stories and the characters are very different from each other, and they do their best to show the differences in the worlds that they both create. Each mission is between 1 to 2 hours long, and each player will be given a unique mechanic to traverse the world with. The first mission being a cyberpunk city, with Zoe having a gravity whip allowing her to grab and launch items, while Mio is equipped with a gravity-shifting katana, leading her to be able to traverse up certain walls, leading to some very disorientating moments. These mechanics stay consistent and are very key to getting around the level. This isn't all you get for each level though. Split Fiction is all about how things constantly change around you, and this goes for the gameplay as well. One moment you're climbing up a skyscraper, camera flipping around as you change direction of gravity. The next moment you're riding motorcycles, doing flips and trying to take down a giant boss walker. Where the frequent change of gameplay shine for me is the bonus levels. These are portals that you find throughout the mission that take you into small side stories written from the characters, and these allow the devs really to go wild. These levels are short, coming in around 5 minutes long each, but act as a nice breather, helping break up the 1+ hours you'll spend on each level. I was actually really excited every time a new bonus story came up, wondering what weird wacky concept is waiting for me on the other side. They range wildly, with stories such as being stuck in an hourglass full of sand sharks, or another where you have to climb a mountain occupied by giants. There's even one, which was shown off in the initial trailers, where you play as pigs with special abilities. You can explore the small fantasy world where pigs fly and build houses to protect themselves from external threats, collecting magical apples along the way. A bit stunned when I first entered, I explored this world, trying to take in what the hell was going on. 5 minutes later, I was flying high in a picnic basket, and then suddenly, I was met with the demise that most pigs do, and became a sausage. Even at this point, I was controlling the sausage and could grill myself and pour ketchup and mustard all over my co-op partner as we put ourselves into bread rolls. All these bonus stories are completely optional, but I would 100% recommend everyone to do them. These were some of the most out there and memorable parts of the game for me. This is the crazy off-the-wall scenario you can expect to be thrown into in this game. And to put it simply, it's just fun. Silly, goofy, enjoyable fun. Some of the bonus levels even achieve gameplay sections that I didn't think possible, providing plenty of jaw-dropping wow moments that are better discovered than me continuing to talk about them. The inclusion of these bonus levels, however, did highlight one of the small issues I had with the game, and that's the pacing of the missions. Some missions later on are absent from these bonus levels, and I really felt it, making some of these missions feel drawn out. I can understand why they stopped including them at this point, as it does it when the story starts to climax, so they became more focused. I do think personal preference is a big part here. With gameplay shifting so frequently, there are going to be levels that some people prefer to others. These bonus missions spoiled me to where I was always looking for more. That's not to say the main missions are absent of switching up variety and providing their own surprises. Many of these worlds were so hard to pull me away from, and I'm sure others have already commented on this, but the final mission is insane. Throughout the entire last mission, I was locked in disbelief of what I was seeing. I've dabbled in game development, not an expert in any way, but I was trying to figure out how they made what was happening on my screen. Telling my duo at the time, I would love to watch the last mission from the game engine perspective. The level design stays consistently great throughout. I got to a point where I was just excited to go into the next level, just to see where it was going to take me and what mechanics it was going to put into play for me to interact with. All the worlds felt believable and fitting to the characters that wrote them. The story itself isn't just a throwaway idea just to serve the gameplay. It does have a story to tell and a deeper meaning, and I like that. It also does a great job of slowly building a backstory that lets you learn about the characters from the worlds they create. It does fall flat a little bit in the characters themselves, in my personal opinion. It took me a while to warm up to them and ended up taking half the game before I got invested in the story itself. The characters also have a lot of quips, and there are plenty of cheesy cliche moments, which did wear me down a little bit. This didn't make the story not enjoyable, however, and I did find myself still enjoying the storytelling throughout. With some good level design pushing the narrative forward and some humour chucked in, which did actually get a laugh out of me, a lot of this is going to come down to personal taste. And at the end of the day, luckily, even if the story isn't for you, the gameplay is more than capable of keeping you engaged throughout. I've touched on this a little bit already, but visually the game looks really good. It has such diverse environments due to the setup of the story that I'm sure the environmental artists have to work overtime for. A lot of care must have gone into it, and it shows. The art style matches the personality of the game, being very colourful and vibrant when it's needed to match the mood. The general gameplay scenes are not jaw-dropping when it comes to graphics, but deliver a good-looking world. The game instead focuses on these set-piece moments of certain areas or missions which will just blow you away. Whether that's swinging through a crowded club full of people partying, or the moment that really solidified it for me was when I skydived down into a secret base located into the middle of the ocean, and the view was just stunning. There's also certain bonus stories where they experiment with different art styles, and wow, this adds even more incredible moments to the game that will stay in my head for a long time. Now I'm going to quickly touch on the technical state. There's not much to say here. With regarding performance, I was playing this on a PC at 4K on a 4090 and had 0 frame rate drops or stutters, which you would expect to see. But to my surprise, it runs on Unreal Engine 5, and somehow they've managed to make a game with large gameplay areas on that engine that does not have micro stutters. They seem to have achieved this by sacrificing using some of the new technologies like RT and Lumen in return for performance. This also has great scalability downwards, running natively at 1080p at a locked 30 on a 9070, and running at 1440p at 60 FPS on a 3070. It's also Steam Deck verified for all the Steam Deck users out there, although with the split screen always being a present thing, I would prefer to play this on a much larger screen. For the console users, it seems to run at 1800p upscaled on the PS5 and the Series X, native 4K on the PS5 Pro, and 1080p on the Series S, all at a smooth 60 FPS frame rate. I have left a breakdown from Digital Foundry in the description if you want a more in-depth deep dive into the game's visual tech and performance. I'm also happy to report that I did not encounter a single bug playing the game and 0 crashes, which has become a really rare thing recently. Right, time to wrap up this review. There's plenty of moments I'd love to talk about with this game, but it's all better experience through playing the game yourselves. So, would I recommend Split Fiction? 100%. This game just oozes creativity and passion, still surprising me in providing all the head-spinning moments in gameplay and crazy set pieces, even with the expectations set by It Takes Two. It focuses on fun and nails it. That's really the key, what makes this game special. It's a classic video game through and through, prioritizing fun factor above everything else. If you can find yourself a good partner, this will be one of the best games you've played this year. On top of the great consumer-friendly moves with crossplay and the friend pass, it really is a no-brainer to pick up and play. As always, if you played the game, I encourage you to put your thoughts and opinions for others to see in the comments section down below, but please keep it spoiler-free. Also, if you have any feedback for me, feel free to leave it down there as well, and I'll be sure to read through every single comment. If you like this review, please hit the like button, and if you want to hear more from my ramblings in the future, please hit subscribe, as it really helps me get access to more titles to share with you all. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day.